You are listening to the audiobook Veilshatter, Legends of Elyndar, now available on Amazon, Audible, and wherever books are sold. Featuring our three unforgettable heroes, an epic adventure begins.
The Scholar's Shadow. The sky above Avestra glimmered pale as poured mercury, neither night nor true morning, the sun long withheld, yet the air already prickled with unrest and the scent of storms. Liora lingered beneath the colonnade of her cramped lodgings, deadened bells echoing in her bones. Somewhere overhead, the Scholar's ward stretched its rune-graven arches, every buttress straining beneath invisible weight. In the slow waking hush, she watched ripples pass across the nearest spirit bridge, as if the fabric itself quivered on the verge of unraveling. Senn Grell's approach announced itself not with noise, but a raveling unease that clung to her nape. The half-dwarf's boots scattered gravel in odd, syncopated crunches. Beneath a drape of slate-gray wool, his hunched shoulders bulked larger than seemed likely, and wrapped within his crook elbow, Liora glimpsed a length of ancient birchboard, runes seared black as obsidian across its face. Every line invoked a flavor of forbidden memory, sharp, resinous, aching with the impossible weight of half-recalled edict. Avestra's runes flickered above them, their light wan and stubborn. Mist eddied around Senn's boots as he halted, disquiet, straining every feature too wide and pocked to be pure Marunian, too clever-eyed to be missed in any crowd. This morning, even his normally jocular air failed him. His greeting flashed out in a brittle whisper. "You saw something last night." It landed less as a question, more as accusation. Liora's shoulders stiffened behind her borrowed cloak. "Dreams, and not only mine. I felt the city thinned. There is something prowling, beneath the stones, behind the glass." Senn's response was too swift, too practiced. Not only behind. He pressed the birchboard into her hands, knuckles bloodless around its edges. Cold radiated from it, seeping up her arms. The runes pulsed sullenly, as if tasting her for secrets. She yearned to flinch, but made herself hold its weight. Senn's gaze studied the gullies beneath her eyes, the pallor pressed into her skin. For a moment, concern warred with discipline, then vanished beneath the habitual mask of the historian. "They're moving again." "The eclipse thralls," Senn murmured, voice nearly lost to the wind. "Old wards are failing. And something rides the memory tides, child. Something hungry." Memory echoes drifted from windows above, strange motes like drifting pollen, sigils unmoored from meaning, collecting in hazy fragility. Liora shuddered, heart-knocking. "The spirit bridges, look." She gestured with the birchboard, unwilling to let her attention rest solely on Senn's words. "They're guttering. I felt them pulse, even in my sleep. She faltered, shame and fierce pride locked in her chest. "Dreamt the Veilborn, Senn. Or perhaps it dreamt me. I woke. Marked." Senn grimaced, gaze darting to the narrowest alley just behind her. The ancient scholars have it. Never show fear directly. "That's the danger of your art, Liora. Soul-weaving was always the hinge. The Senate never tells it true. After the night of mawing mirrors, the laws were rewritten, but the costs remained." He tapped the birchboard with a stubby forefinger, runes emitting a faint, sour gleam. "Wards once girded this quarter," he said softly. "Runes not just painted, but carved bone deep. Years ago, a latticework of law and compassion, meant to catch memory threads before they snagged the living. I was barely more than an apprentice, copying the codices, but I watched. Every year, fewer remembered. Now, we get this." He swept his hand at the shuddering light, the creeping dark encroach. "A city full of echoes. The bridges hold only because none dare test their limits. Liora pressed her fingertips into the board's notched edge, feeling the pulse and drag of the ancient runes. Something about their cadence called memory up from her marrow. Her mother, voice strong but wistful, singing the lullabies forbidden outside their home. Her father's careful hands weaving salt and ash along lintels to keep the thin places closed. Grief pressed close, balancing dread with fragile defiance. There are still scholars who remember. I've tried. Her voice trailed off as a spasm of exhaustion coursed through her, drawing too deep inwards, even for a flicker, threatened vertigo. Her art might bind the echoes, but this morning the boundaries came blood-priced dear. Did Senn see the tremor run through her wrists? If he did, he ignored it, pressing on. Avestra's Senate trusts to tradition. Senn's tone soured, thick with old injury. But tradition only works when remembered. You know the edicts. Never cross the spirit bridge after the fourth bell. Never utter names thrice at a crossroad. But what of the wards beneath the archives vaults? Who now tends them? In the old years, every wall here was laid with flexed intent. Runecraft, not just inscription, but living command. We've grown careless, blind to the cost of things left unmended. The thralls seek only a single flaw, one breach, and they will pour through. He flicked his chin at the city, the wide sweep below, where the scholar's market should have rippled with color and morning call. Only mist moved, pierced now and then, by hurrying figures warded to the teeth with salt bowls and moonwater charms. It was not enough. Liora studied the birch board, daring a closer touch. The first rune, serpentine, forked, hinted at a holding, an old defense against incursion. The second bled, blackening the grain. "Do these runes still bind anything?" she asked, voice catching between skepticism and need. "They bind recollection," Senn replied, "and with it, consequence. Read them too far, and the wards will draw on your soul. The Senate would burn this board if they found it. But what else is there? Prayer doesn't turn the tide. Only memory, and a will stubborn as Riverstone." Liora grimaced at that. Will was her inheritance and curse, a surge she struggled to master even as it threatened to leak out uncontrolled, as it had during the dream. "Last night I lost myself," she admitted, a confession gritted out between shivers. The Veilborn peeled something free. I could not close the seams in time. "I'm open still, a flaw for the thralls." She expected rebuke. Senn only nodded, his eyes distant and rain-colored. "We all have cracks, Liora. Yours run deeper, maybe, but they aren't the city's undoing, unless someone who knows how to widen them gets close." He glanced toward the bridges, where a single thread of blue-white fire guttered out in a puff of shadow, invisible fingers curling at its edge. "This city remembers loss too well. It draws the darkness back to itself." A flicker shifted in her periphery. The alley beyond Senn fuzzed with half-formed shapes, silhouettes of those who never found peace. Leora's breathing hitched. "The thralls! Are they here truly? Or only their servants?" Senn's voice rasped with bitter certainty. "Their avatars cross under veils. And now—" He paused. Across the far plaza, a lantern burst in showers of blue sparks. The sound snapped the hush, sending a ripple across the bridges, coiling light bowing as if pressed by something unseen. Senn moved to block her instinctive step forward. "Do not draw deeper, girl. If you reach for them, you'll burn what is left of you. The cost has never changed. Offer power, and it will be taken. Remember the stories of the night. Scholars with eyes turned to glass, their lives unwritten, not even a whisper on the air." He pressed two fingers to the runes, muttering in Old Mirunian, a cadence that slithered like eel flesh down her spine, roughening the air with tiny, dormant spirits called by memory alone. Something cold snaked out of the board. Liora gasped, soul shivering as if plunged through sun-melted ice. The runes drank her fatigue greedily, drawing a chain of vision stuff from behind her eyes. Flickers of her mother gathering stones atop Veillock Wood's sun-warmed roots. Her own hand learning the shapes of the first sigil. 1,000 secrets half-uttered. Power leaked from her. A necessary tithe for even the hint of defense the runes promised. She wrenched back control, muscles quivering, and the birch board dulled once again. Vision returned to normal colors, the ripple in the stones settling. Senn watched her, burdened, the look of one who's bidden a necessary cruelty. "I'm sorry, Liora, but memory is all I know to gamble. Our enemies not only shadow or hunger, but the erasure of what's precious, who you were, what we cherished. Hold to that, and maybe you can withstand what's coming." A wind funneled through High Scholar's Lane, stirring cloaks and purpled mist, whispering promises of rot and promise both. Avestra itself seemed to strain, great heart beating raggedly beneath their feet. The bridges above shivered, now and then echoes, not quite screams, threaded the wind. Liora bit the inside of her cheek, wrestling despair. If the veils fall, Senn, if the thralls break through the memory wards, what happens to those not marked for soul weaving? The unlucky might sleep through the forgetting. The rest are swept away. He patted her hand, a weighty gesture belied by its tremor. But if you stand your ground, well, not every tale ends in ruination, not if even one strand holds. A distant chime rang, brittle and uncertain. Calls echoed off the rune-etched towers above, hasty summons, panic now slicing through the waking city. Liora pressed the birch board to her chest, soul fluttering between dread and the prickling exuberance of a new purpose. "And what of hope, Senn? Is there any left?" He twisted his mouth, almost smiling. "Hope is a weed, child. It grows where everything else dies." A sudden heaviness pressed at the edges of her mind, like a summons, not the brute force of the Veilborn, but its distant echo, purposeful and insistent. The shadowed plaza where the bridges met flickered, blue flames drowning in night. She thought she glimpsed shifting robes in the fold between two towers. Impossible, yet inevitable. Senn stepped back, wary as a fox at moonrise. "We must move." The Scholar's Court may still hold. A few runes to gather, a few stories to salvage before the flood. Will you come, Liora? Grit and ache warred in her chest. The city teetered, ancient wounds exposed, every choice shadowed by the prowling dark. But Senn had offered memory against forgetting, and in memory she rooted her resolve. Liora nodded, refusing her trembling limbs any quarter. "Yes, I will not be unmade." Mist thickened along the lane as they started down, fugitive motes spinning through the dawn light. In the heights, the spirit bridges moaned, their song a warning, their glow a faltering promise. Behind them, the shadow lengthened, and around every breath, the world's veil shivered, thin and thinning still,